Hello, hello, folks. How are we all doing? I can't believe it. I'm live. um, so this is actually new to me. The first time I'm going live on my own. I just got EVMux, which seems to be a really cool software for going live. So expect me to stumble around, just fall on my ass a lot. Some Beaver Builder stuff. If everything works out the way I want it to. First of all, let's check some comments. Let's check who's here. We've got 5 people. Very nice. Very nice. Let me know where you're from, what kind of builder you're using. Are you a main Beaver Builder person? Are you using bricks? Have you switched to any other builder? It'd be nice to know. And then we'll go over what we're going to do today. Let's see. Let me check my notes anyway. I think I have everything prepared. That would be the first step. Sound check is important. Can you guys hear me well? Let me know. If the sound is off, or if you can't hear me, that wouldn't be so nice. I expect it should be. Testing, yay! Right. Right. So let me set up my screen share. Let's tinker around with this. So first of all, perhaps a little bit about me. My name is Matt. I am, I guess, a professional. I've been building websites for clients since 2016. I have a one-man digital agency called Brand Artery, and I've been doing this stuff since 1999. I learned CSS and HTML first. I hand-coded websites for quite a while, switched to WordPress in 2007. Then when I moved to Montreal, I went to the games industry for a while. I tested video games. And then 2016, I decided, hey, why don't like late 2015, why don't I try to make this website building hobby a full-time thing? And that's where I am today. I'm doing not exactly full-time, I do it full-time, and I have my own thing, side hustle. So we have a couple people from the Beaver Builder community who were interested. One more about the box module. I think we can wait for another 1 or 2 minutes for perhaps 1 or 2 more people to come in, see what happens, and I'm going to jump right into that. Let's see. Again, let me know if you guys can hear me well, and where you're from and what building you're using. First thing, that's going to be, as I mentioned, we're going to look at the box module, and then the second thing is some building work on a website that I'm working on. It's a website that actually went live, I think, in mid 2022, something like that. It was actually one of my last Beaver Builder websites before I switched to bricks, and it is for a chimney sweep in Thüringen, part of Germany. And I always thought it came out quite nice. I did the photos for this one. We had a really nice photo session, full day, full weekend actually, today, taking a ton of photos. It's working, and so we got all this. And then, back in my Beaver Builder days, I sort of just build one step at a time. I just opened Beaver Builder and I was like, hey, let's just go. Let's just see where this design leads me. So this is what you would actually supposed to do in Figma. I did right in Builder. perhaps preparing websites or like just making it up as I went along. I do think it came out quite nice, but it's not how I would do it today. So what he's doing, or actually, I'm gonna go into a little bit about what he's doing once later, and switch over to the box module, which is an interesting one. It's Beaver Builder's attempt, and if you guys have seen the Bridge Builders stream, you're gonna recognize this because it's gonna be sort of a bit of a rehash of what I did the Bridge Builder stream last week. But I want to go a little bit deeper about CSS Grid and Flex and their implementation of it. Even the box module. So the box module has its own documentation, which I do recommend reading. I read through most of it. It some it's like a large part of the documentation that explains how Beaver, well, how CSS Grid and CSS Flex, um, what role they play in web design. Sorry about that. And how to use them, like why they are important, and in which different ways you implement them. The short of it is that Grid, they're both layout models, it's true, so you can use Response or CSS Grid to create layouts for your website. The purpose is that if your grid is designed for two-dimensional layout, and like how they display this here in a sort of icon, so you can have, for instance, two rows, right? Um, three columns, or four, I guess, columns, and you could have like one child of that grid just span a bunch of columns. So it's made for that to have an x-axis and a y-axis, a layout with content or containers inside of it. Whereas Flex is a single direction layout system. So this is look at this, right? You see here one platform. This is actually WordPress.org. They're using Flex here to display these icons going sometime that's out. WordPress in a row, right? And it's quite nice because if you open the DevTools and inspect this, you can see here that this container is a Flex container. So if you click on this Flex pill in the DOM view, you're gonna get a highlight of how Flex is implemented here. And you can see that these are spaced out evenly, right? There's an even spacing between them, and they are set to, like, Flex automatically stretches or, well, aligns the children, which are these Rolling Stone type, etc. logos, allows automatically to stretch to the max width of the container, which is like the whole container width here. And Melanie says there's a bunch of well, I can't really check if there's. Let me see. Oh God, I know why the sound must have been horrible up till now. I'm really sorry.
Because I was using the wrong microphone. Probably now it's a whole lot better. Yeah, I expect it's much better now. Sorry. I don't know if you guys were able to hear anything up until now. So let's go back to the beginning. What I was talking about is that we looked at Flex and Grid for CSS, and oh, thank you, Jesus Christ. We are looking at CSS Flex and Grid. So this on WordPress.org, this is CSS Flex, right? And it's it's basically one container that has all these icons in it, and the icons Flex just uses is a way to distribute. In this case, it's distributed evenly. So Flex is set so that these items will stretch with even spacings in between them to the whole width of the container, right? That's how they're always going to look nice. And now if I look at this at different screen sizes, it's going to shrink or grow, right? You can see this here, right? So it's a really nice way to distribute and evenly lay out stuff like that. Whereas grid, you would use grid, for instance, here in the blog. It's a two-dimensional layout system, so you can have like these grids, right? Um, it's like a three column and two row grid, and all the elements that go into this grid, they just, if you put an extra element in it, all the other ones will just, you know, distribute themselves across the rest of the grid. So that's the difference. And I actually went into JS Fiddle and prepared this a little. I built a grid here and I built Flex as well. So I'm going to take all this code out to just show you guys how this would work in if you're doing this in source code. Probably for most of you guys, this will be old news, but um, both for people watching it now and for people watching later, I'm going to go into details here and look at this. So now if I press Control Enter, nothing is there. So we're going to put in, we're just going to build a simple layout with the section, and inside the section, we're going to put a container. And inside that container, we just could put a couple of blocks, right? I'm going to put one block in for now. There. And now if I render this, we're not going to see anything because there's no styling for them. So they're here, but they're not really visible because they don't have borders or anything to make them visible. So the next thing would be that we're going to use a little bit of CSS for, first of all, for the sections. Yeah, I might as well just take the first block of CSS to put the H2 and stuff in there. Where's the H2 here? At the beginning of the section. Oops, I'm going to put an H2. Thanks, Mark. I love the commitment that you're watching while golfing. That's good. That's very good. Um, right. Right. So now you can see we have an H2 here, right? And I put some CSS in here to just remove the top margin of this H2 because otherwise it's misaligned. And then I put, for the section, I gave this one a little bit of padding, left and right padding, and top and bottom padding to make it look nice. And I gave the background color, so now it becomes visible. But still, we cannot see the block that we put in here. So what we want to do is this container is going to be a container. It helps if I give it the right class too. So let's do that now. Right. This is the grid container. And we're going to have a bit of CSS for that. And still, we're not really seeing any contents, but we gave this, well, I'm going to put a border around the block as well. This guy goes over here. Right. Now we can see this box. So what I just did is I gave the container of this div that contains the block, I gave it a display of grid. So I told it you're going to be a grid container. And I told it grid template columns, you're going to have 3 columns, and each of these columns is going to be the width of one FR. FR is a fractional unit. You got to imagine, like, if you're filling a glass with water, you can have, you know, 1 part water and, I don't know, 2 parts air, right? And that's basically fraction. So if I put here grid templates columns, I want 2 FR and then 1 FR, 1 FR, then the first item in this grid is going to be two parts of the whole width. So if I now compute this, you're going to see this becomes wider. Now I'm going to add two more blocks. So basically, these are divs that are called that have the block and grid classes, right? Now we can see the other two are 1FR and 1FR. Now let's say I want to have two FR, 1FR, 2FR, right? Then it's going to be like this. So this way you can tell them how to behave, right? And if I shrink or grow them, they're going to grow proportionally. Now, there's ways, obviously, to make them wrap at a certain point. Like you don't want them to get any less wide than this. But we're not going to go into this also because I would have to look it up now. I don't know how to do it by heart. So, and then in between, I put a gap of 1 rem. Rem is just a spacing unit. And I gave the whole thing a height of 200 pixels. So this is 200 pixels, and the width of all of this is 100%. So 100% of the container. So it goes from the far left to the far right, and it has these three grid things in it. So that's a very rudimentary, basic explanation of how grid works. And now let's look at the flex, or before we do that, let's put a bunch more in here just to show you guys that it's a two-dimensional layout. So now I have, I don't know, a whole lot of blocks in here, and you can see that they get less tall because the whole full height of the container is still 200, right? But that's how it works, right? Now, I think if I remove the height, then I can give the children their own height, for instance, and then it would just grow with them. But this is how grid in its very basic form works. And now we're going to put in a flex container, flex section. It's the same thing, right? It's basically just a section, and inside I have a heading, and then class flex container, and inside the container, I have a bunch of blocks that also have the flex class. So now if I compute this, it's here, but the blocks are not really visible. What we're seeing here is just the black borders of the boxes, but nothing else because the boxes don't have their own CSS. So that's what we're going to do next. And we're going to get the CSS rules from here. This CSS rule says the border color of the flex children should be magenta, and they should have a flex grow of 1. So we're going to see in a moment what that means. And now we're going to style a container. There we go. Now we have this. So the container, again, has a height of 300 pixels. In that case, its width is 100%. And the gap between them, again, is 1 rem, right? If I remove this gap, then they just stick to each other. Like this. Oops. And that's how Flex implements these children, right? These boxes. I need to tell them to have a width of flex grow. So if I do flex 1, that tells them you need to grow to the maximum available size. And since there's this many of them, they all try to grow to 100%. So that's they just grow as far as they can until they hit the next kid, which also tries to grow as far as they can. That's what children do; they grow. So yeah, this might have already been a little bit of overkill, but it gives you a basic idea of how grid and flex work. I hope at least I get some idea of that and how they're used. And now we want to look at, I think this is hopefully a decent prelude to what we're going to look at now, how actually in Beaver Builder grid and flex are implemented to the box module. So I have my Beaver Builder installed here, and we're going to go here. Actually, you probably should still see the Taylor Swift rebuild that we were doing. I'm just gonna undo some of that, just reset it to a fresh website. And oh god, it takes a while. Yes. Yeah, I shouldn't have clicked again now. Oh, come on. So let's get rid of all this content, right? Let's get rid of this element or just disable it. There. So now if I publish this, Control P publishes in Beaver Builder, and I reload, we just have an empty page here. And on this empty page, I'm going to delete this as well. All I have is, well, nothing right now. And I can put now here in rows, this is where in Beaver Builder you put, oh, hey, Brendan, thank you very much. Thanks. It's good to have you here. Glad you're there. Actually, let me see. Can I bring, how do I bring you on the screen? Show. Oh, there we go. Nice. Nice. I said at the beginning, which nobody could hear because I was using the wrong microphone, that actually this is not just my first own live stream, but also the first time I'm using EVMux. So I'm still learning a bunch of stuff about how to use it. And yeah, so far I haven't fallen on my ass too badly. As I was saying, in Beaver Builder under rows is where you normally, where you'd expect, where there are the layout elements. So I can just put one column in here, right? Then I get a one column layout. They stick it in a row, which is kind of a section if we were to speak in HTML terms. And actually you can give it that, like by default, it's a div, right? In the HTML element, but I could set it to section here. As if I wanted to be semantically correct, or at least, come up with some semblance of semantically correct source code, I would do that. It's still gonna be a fairly messy code because that's what these older page builders do. But yeah, let's make it a section for best practices sake. Now, I have set, while we're here in Beaver Builder, if I press Control G or I go here in Global Styles, I can, no, wait, that's actually wrong. And I need to press Control U to Global Settings. I can set up here how I want my rows, so my sections, my containers of everything, how I want them to behave. I want them to have padding of 60 at the top and bottom and 30 at the left and right. I'm not really sure where this outside padding comes from right now, like why this section doesn't extend to the full width of the whole website. But I don't want to find out right now either. I'm just going to give it a background color to make it distinguishable. Oh yeah, right. So yeah, let's make it TDD. And we can see that actually it doesn't extend to the full page width. If anybody sees anything I've overlooked, let me know. Oh yeah, no, I'm seeing what I overlooked. Okay, so if I want this row to be full width, then I need to set it to full width. And then inside the row is this container, which is already a column in Beaver Builder language. And this column is set to be, fixed 1440 pixels, which is just the width that I set for this build. Now you'd think that you could do the same thing I just did in source code. Like in source code, I just put like this is my container, right? Sort of the container that contains all of these guys here. I'm going to make this container visible for you just for shits and giggles while we're here. So the grid container, I'm going to give it a border of 1 pixel, solid blue. Okay. No, well, not blue, yellow, green. Right. Let's make it 3 pixels. So this is the container, the green thing, and inside the container, as we just saw, are all the children, all the boxes that the parts of the grid. Right. What's the program called again? EVMux. Yeah, let me type that in for you. If that's what you're asking, it's a streaming platform, and actually, Mark mentioned it to me after our first stream, and he had it recommended, and I know that Jamie Marsland is doing it for his page building challenge live streams. and it's pretty awesome actually. It's not too expensive, and it's got a lot of very nice features. So we're looking at the container, we're looking at the grids items that are inside it. So what I would expect now is that, I can just give this thing a class, call it container, and then just say you're going to be a grid, like the same thing I did here in CSS. But alas, it does not work that way. In Beaver Builder, you put a column in here, it's a column. That's what it is, right? You just place a column, and then look, you want the column or not. That's basically what you get. So if you want to place something that's supposed to be a grid, what you need to do is, first of all, you need to let go of the layout elements altogether. If you're looking under rows, that's not where you're going to find this particular layout element. Except instead, you find it on the modules where you would think, the modules live. So you actually have to place a box, and a box is a special module in Beaver Builder. Again, it's automatically going to place it inside a row. So the row would be your section. We do this again. Set this to full width, and I tell it to be a section, which is another thing. Like if you don't, like 2022 Matt wasn't actually doing this. Like 2022 Matt just built, and then I wasn't really caring about. Reminds me of times when we need to use actual tables to create a website. Yes, yeah. Um, and yeah, I would just use divs everywhere. So now I'm a little bit smarter, thanks to Kevin, and I use sections, which is just like when HTML5 was introduced in, what was it, 2013? That was one of the big changes that it brought to the table, right? You had sections, you had asides, you had main, you had all these elements that gave semantic meaning to boxes that you use inside your layout. And it did a lot for SEO. It did a lot for maintainable and scalable programming. So it is what people should be using these days. Although you can do it the pre 2013 way, the pre HTML5 way, but yeah, it's not advised. Was it 2013? Yeah, 2014. Okay. Full width, and I turn this. I put a box module in here, and now this box module I can select if I want it to be flex or grid, or if I want it to be layers. And I'm not going to repeat. Like, if please do at this point, I'm going to plug the the bridge builders stream that we did last week, because in the portion about Beaver Builder, we talked about the same thing. We tried to figure out what layers are. I still don't know. I still didn't look further into it, what layers are in Beaver Builder language. And I'm hoping that perhaps at some point in the future, during a future live stream from Bridge Builders, we're going to have an expert Beaver Builder user that knows this builder even better than me. Perhaps they can explain it to us, or I can just do my research. But yeah. So let's say I want to place a bunch of let's place a bunch of logos. I'm gonna just get a few from Logo Ipsum. Make yourselves comfortable while I download a bunch of logos. Oh, those are all SVGs. Can I get them as PNGs? Please consider disabling your ad blocker. Okay, so we have a couple of SVGs now. Let's see how Beaver Builder deals with those. I'm not really sure. So inside this box, I told it to be flex, and I told it nothing else for now. Now I can place a photo, I would say a photo in here, if Beaver Builder allows us to use SVGs. There's no SVG element. See, now I'm not really sure. Let's see what happens if I try it with a photo. Yeah, general, select photo, upload files, get my SVGs, allows me to upload them. Wait a moment. So anybody using EVMux, I would be interested in knowing. Oh, it shows me here, up here. Okay, we got 8 people. 8 people! Not a valid photo extension. Okay, fuck it. I'm not going to waste your time like bringing up GIMP and converting shit right now. So let's just use these 3 video things here. So this one and then another one. So I know I can duplicate this and I can duplicate it again. Right. So now we have 3. Let's make it 3 different ones. Yay, Taylor Swift. And so now you would say, well, isn't this a grid? What's the difference? The difference is that, again, grid would be 2-dimensional. So like I would tell the grid that it has 3 columns, and then if I put another one in here, it's not. What would happen now is just they shrink because they're like, yeah, we're all in the same row, in the same direction, and we need to all fit. So we're just going to keep shrinking. And if it was a 3-column grid, then automatically this would have gone to the next row, right? But that's not what's happening here. Now, if I turn the container, the box, into a grid, let's also see what time it is. We got 30 minutes already. And I want to have 3, yeah, wait, yeah, 3 tracks. Okay, there. And now we do another Taylor here. See, so that's how grid behaves. It's like one of the fundamental differences. Now, if I put another module in here, let's say I put a row, I put 1 column in here. Okay, that just doesn't work, right? Because, well, it's not a module. So if I wanted to put something else in here now, it doesn't have to be just pictures, right? I can put anything in a grid. Normally what people put in grids are just divs, just containers, and then inside the containers you put a bunch of stuff. Like let's say you wanted to build these cards, right? So you have a div, and then inside the div you have a picture, then you have another div in here, and inside that div, because you need the padding, you have a heading, and you have this metadata, text excerpt, and the read more link, right? Let's go back to this guy. So let's say I want to have another div in here. This is what I would do. Now it's a box, okay. And then inside this box, I can put, for instance, first of all, I want this box to have 20 pixels padding. And it turns out I can't do that. Like all I can do is margins, but that's not, that's not what I want. I want to put like a heading in here, and sure, a text editor. Now let's see. Now I can't even grab the box. Like now, if I now want to, because I put nothing into these modules, they sort of became invisible. So now if I want to get to them, let's say I want to, yeah. Okay, let's just put some stuff in here. Okay. And then, yes, I also listen to Pink Floyd. And we see that, this is a flex row again, but flex is fine here. I want these to be, I want this to be a flex container so I can control what's in that container, but I don't want it to be in a row direction. The direction I want to be is column, right? So now you can see immediately that they are in the right order, or they flow in the right direction. Now, where do I want them to be? Perhaps I want them to be in the middle. there, right? But I also want them to be horizontally centered. And then I want to make sure that, well, actually, I'm going to show you this in a moment. I'm going to demonstrate that. So now the box, I want there to be a background image in that box. Let's say I want to have like a bouquet. Let's just close this guy. Yeah, this one's nice. So first of all, I go to the row settings, oh, where I just was. And now I would go, well, where do I put that background image, right? Let's say, wait, no, that's the row. I'm in the row. Okay. Well, I mean, I could put a background photo in the row. Beaver Builder allows me to do that. So, let's use this scene from Game of Thrones. And we have that as a background image here, right? I mean, I'm not saying it looks good, but it's there. So giving it an overlay color like this, right? That's cool. But again, I wanted these two texts to be in front of a background image. So I'm going to go to the box settings and I'm going to look for the same thing. And as of today, I cannot select a background image. It's just not possible. I'm screwed. So just this whole bouquet that I downloaded was all for naught because I cannot use it. Again, just for comparison, if I get this image URL, copy image address, and I go here, and I say, I want this first block, I want this to have that background image. Then I just go div.block.grid colon first child, background image, URL, quotation marks, control enter, and there it is, right? So in CSS, obviously you can just put a background image on a div. It's not a problem, right? But in Beaver Builder you can't. So all this to say, like I showed you guys a bunch of limitations. I hope I showed you both how the box feature works, how the box module works, but also what I think its limitations are. I was actually quite surprised when I saw that you cannot put a background image on a box. And I also find it surprising that a box which is a layout element is not, and like, this shouldn't be called rows, it should be called layout, right? And then you put rows in here, one columns, boxes, and then you're fine. Then you still put a whole bunch of layers of abstraction between HTML and CSS, which is the language of other languages of websites together with JavaScript, and whatever we're doing here, but at least it would be a little closer to the point. I'm gonna, just to cap this off. Meanwhile, if you guys have any questions, let me know. I'll be happy to answer. But just to cap this off, I'm going to take a look at bricks. So for those of you who don't know, I used to be a Beaver Builder user. I used it from 2015 until, oh yeah, in bricks, I also built the Taylor Swift website. So in this case, we're just going to make a new page. I used it from 2015 to 2022. Then I switched to Oxygen, which a friend of mine recommended to me. And I thought it was very liberating because it just gives you, it's basically a front end for HTML and CSS. So you can do whatever you want. And it's really awesome. And then Oxygen, then Breakdance got released. And some of us will remember how that went. And it wasn't very nice. And I switched to Bricks because I kind of lost faith in Oxygen, or at least in the leadership. Also, Bricks is better. I do think it's better. Like just the way how fast Bricks loads is incredible. Like you click on edit with Bricks, and then a few seconds later you're in, and you're editing something in Bricks. So let's get rid of all of this. And yeah, we have the Taylor Swift header and footer. We don't care. So I'm going to put in a section, which is pretty much like sort of like the row that I put in Beaver Builder, except it's a section. It's the section in HTML. Inside I have a container. Basically, what I just did with one mouse click is this, like, you know, pretty much this, right? Except the H2 in there. So let's put a heading in here. Select the container, and I'm going to press A. I think. And then let's put another container in here. Actually, no. The heading comes here. Actually, no, that's not true either. Yeah. No. I'm going to give it its own container. So in Bricks, a container is basically just a div that has a container class on it. And what you do in Bricks is you set containers up to have a certain width. Then you have an inner and an outer width of the website. The outer width of the website is the section, and it normally, unless you change that, extends to 100% of the viewport. And then inside you have your container, which determines the width of your content. So, like, let's say I go to global settings here, in styles, and I say element container. I want the content to be 40 pixels wide. That's what happens. So now if I give this container a background color, yeah, this, right? We can see this is the container. And inside the container is a heading, and then we have another container that's going to be our grid. And what you do in Bricks is you just say, I want this to be, well, first of all, a div is fine, and then I want it to be grid, right? Now it knows it's a grid. And then I put a gap in it. Say the gap is going to be 1 rem. Let's do what I just programmed. Let's do the same thing I did here. And then I say I want 3 columns, 1 FR, 1 FR, 1 FR. And then rows, I want as many rows as I like. I don't care. And now I'm going to put in a bunch of blocks. So just press the B button 3 times because I'm using advanced schema. Let's make it 5 blocks. And now we can already see that these blocks are already in here, and they're getting distributed across the rows. So that's basically, that's just basically building HTML and CSS in a visual way, and I get to do whatever I want. So I guess this just turned into a little plug for Bricks because I think it's better. Yeah. I may or may not have COVID, so sorry, I'm only telling you this now. I guess I just infected all of you. I wasn't thinking straight. It's the COVID. So my throat is a little bit sore. Nothing else has happened, but that's why I'm going to be drinking tea. I guess I think the person who really wanted to know about the box module and about CSS Grid Flex from the Beaver Builder community, she told me she probably can't make it today, so I expect she's not here. If you are here, then give us a shout. If you have any questions about this, give us a shout. Um, yeah, anything, because otherwise I'm just going to move on to my build and just going to do a little bit of live building of a website or a website extension that I did on Wednesday. Yeah, I prepared it on Wednesday and just going to go through how I did it. Let's leave Bricks. Let's close a bunch of stuff that we don't need anymore. Yeah, we don't need this. That's right. Okay. So earlier on, I was talking about the website of this chimney sweep. I think it was one of the last Beaver Builder websites that I ever built, or it might have been the last one. In 2022, we had this nice photo session. We, went through all around the area where he works, took a bunch of photos of him and about the cities or like villages, I guess, that he's active in. I think they turned out really nice. Really proud of some of these shots. And we made some local service area pages. So this is the page for this village. This is the page for that village, so we can rank in them. Some basic SEO that we did here. And what's happening now is that he has a whole bunch of smoke detectors lying around that just the stock that he has that he's trying to sell off. And he says he approached me about turning this into a feature on his website that people can buy directly from him, because he also wants to test the waters if there's an audience at all for building stuff, buying stuff from him. And that's why I ended up building this pretty simple page that just shows off the thing. And that I wrote some text. I basically just looked up the product page of that smoke detector, and I then use that information to to write this copy. Now, why did I do this beforehand? I don't want to bore you guys with while I sit there and try to come up with the copy. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a new page. Mm, Going to hide it from search engines, and then we're just going to rebuild this from scratch. And we get like 45 minutes in, so I'm guessing the next 30, 40 minutes or something, we're just going to build this page from scratch, and I'm going to just talk you guys through how I did it. And would be interesting either now or later in the comments to, get your impressions of this. Let me know if you think it's a decent way to work with Beaver Builder. Am I missing anything? Am I overlooking anything? And you know, yeah, generally, is there better or worse ways to do this? I'm going to add a new page here it's under WIP. Might as well do that now here in the same folder. Going to make it private. So there's a couple ways, like if you're building a website or if you're building a page and you're building it on a live website, then there's a couple of ways to build it so it's not going to show up in search engines. First of all, you could just make it private, but then your client can't necessarily see it unless they log into WordPress. You could make it public, but then you would have to just go to Rec Math and go here to advanced and just say, I want this to be no index. So search engines don't put this into their index, and it shows up in the search results and search result pages. And then obviously, if you make a larger change, you just clone the whole website to a different environment, and you just no index that whole environment. So I'm going to make this public, and I set it to no index, and I'm going to launch Beaver Builder, and we're just going to start playing. Before we even start in Beaver Builder, now it's open, that's good. Also, I do like about Beaver Builder that it doesn't take too long to load. Like if you're opening Oxygen, it takes really long. I seem to remember that Elementor also takes its sweet time, but Beaver Builder was always fairly fast. But then Beaver Builder actually, like if you do something in it, then every mouse click just takes time. Like sometimes it takes more or less time, but you can see that it's not. There's always some delay here, and depending on how much stuff you have on the page or how shitty your hosting is, it's going to take a while. So what we're going to do first is we're going to go steal. I'm actually in touch in talks with this company, and I asked them whether we're allowed to even use those pictures on this page. So that's another thing that hasn't been clarified yet. So we're definitely not releasing this page. This page is password protected, is hidden from search engines until we have feedback from them. Well, there's no telling if this is the way the page is going to go live, but this is what I built as a first draft. So I went ahead and I downloaded all these images from the from the manufacturer's website. And now what we're going to do is we're going to open them in GIMP. Because remember, what I want to do with this live stream is I just want to show off my real life workflows. So we're not just going to be in builders. We're not just going to be in dev environments, but we're also going to be in the future. We're going to be in Figma. We're going to be in Google Drive and Excel sheets, and we're going to be in GIMP because that's definitely something I still use a lot. So while I look for this for the assets, what's his name? Mark Graham. I switched to Linux from Windows Vista. That was the last straw in 2009. And I used Ubuntu until I think 2017, 2018-ish. And then I switched to Mint. But when I switched to Linux, I realized, well, I was already I was already enjoying photography a lot. There we go. And I realized, well, this is the time that I take my graphics editing skills to the next level too. So I actually bought a book about GIMP, and I read through the whole book and taught myself how to use GIMP, and still using it today. So it's on a different screen now. Wait, those are the wrong ones. I'm going to need the original ones. So these are the pictures that came from the website. And just to show off GIMP, because it's still a reliable workhorse. Obviously, it is no Photoshop. Photoshop has a lot of quality of life features that make editing much more convenient and much simpler, much more efficient. But still, you can get where you want to go with GIMP, and if you become familiar with it, it also won't take very long. So what I did here is I just used a fuzzy. Okay, first of all, what I needed to do was remove this white background because I want this effect, right, where the background of the picture is transparent, right? I don't want to have a white box around this. It would look shitty. So what I need to do in GIMP is, first of all, I need to add an alpha channel here. It's already there. Not always do you have an alpha channel in a picture. So if I were to, let's say my background color here is orange. If I were to now select this and press delete, then it just reverts to the background color, which is not what I wanted. So that's why you need an alpha channel. The alpha channel is basically a transparency channel. So now I deleted all this, but now if I zoom in here, I can see that these edges, there's still some white, but it's like off white. So it's not the cleanest way to do this. So let's undo. So let's undo again. I'm going to do a fuzzy selection again. Fuzzy select is just the magic wand tool. It selects everything, the same color. And I give it a threshold of 0 because if I give it a larger threshold, it's going to select similar colors as well. Control Shift A, please. Control Shift A. Okay, whatever. Right, then it's going to select this stuff. But I only wanted to select really what's pure white here. So the threshold is 0. Why doesn't Control Shift A work? Nothing. Select nothing. None. Control Shift A. Okay, sure. Yeah, sometimes it's not. It's got some problems. So now what I do is, you see here that I want to have this nice transition from full color here to transparency. So first of all, I go to select grow, and I grow it by 2 pixels. And then I go to select feather, and I'm going to feather it by 2 pixels. So now the selection, if I put on a mask here, we can see that the selection, everything that's red is selected, and everything that's nothing is not selected. And you can see there's a smooth transition here from fully selected to not fully selected. And now if I press delete, if I add an alpha channel and press delete, and we can see that we're smoothly transitioning here from the thing to transparency. So again, let's do this with the other ones as well. So fuzzy select, then we go select grow to, select feather to, and then we add the alpha channel and go delete. It's already there. We delete here. and delete. And the last one. You can already feather the edges immediately. Just gonna tell it 2 pixels, and then I'm gonna do the fuzzy select. And now I only need to grow it. Right. Same result. Feathering goes until slightly here, and again. So now I want to scale these down because they're really huge. 3,400 pixels is way too much. We don't need that much. We may as well go to like 800, right? So what I did is I pressed Alt I and then S to select scale. Mhm. Alt I S 800. 800. Actually, what I forgot to do, and I'm just going to do it now, it doesn't really matter, is to crop these to the content because first of all, they're some of them are aligned off center like this, right? And then there's all this negative space around them. So if I put them into a website layout, it's gonna look it's gonna look off because they all this transparent negative space is just around the image and it's gonna become part of the layout, and that's shitty. So I press Alt I O, crop the content, and I'm gonna do this with all of them. And I should have done this first because now they're no longer 800 pixels wide, but whatever's left. So just imagine I'd done it first, right? And then I send them. Actually, no. You know what? I'm going to do this. I'm going to save it. Sends this to down 800 pixels as a PNG. And now it's something that I find really, really important, and that oftentimes people forget to do. You need to compress that PNG because it's 163 kilobytes. Okay, it's not huge, but there's ways to make this much smaller, right? So on Linux, we have a tool called Curtail, which I love because I just drag this into Curtail. Right, where is it? And then it just compresses the thing for me. And in most cases, when you compress an PNG, you're not going to see the difference. This is one of the cases where you actually will see. No, not this one. Yeah, you can slightly see the difference here. Like if you look at this, there's a gradient here, and I don't know if you can see it on the stream, but there's like these lines, right? That's where the compression becomes visible because the gradient is a smooth gradient on the original file, but here it's basically just different colored areas that are layered next to each other, and you can see the boundaries between them. So, but yeah, it became much smaller. If you don't have, if your computer is not running Linux, then Curtail is not an option for you. Then you just go to tinypng.com, and it does the same thing for you. You just load your PNG in here, and then it optimizes it for you. Go Web Pro, huh? Might be that they started limiting it. I don't know. I haven't used it in a while. Although for Windows or for Mac, I'm sure there's going to be similar tools that just batch convert or compress images for you. So what you get in the end are these four. No, not these four. These four. Right here, you can see it very, very clearly. The gradient from bright colors to darker colors here, and how there's basically these boundaries between them. I decided I can live with that. I don't know if my client can live with that. They're going to tell me. And well, if they can't, or if the manufacturer says we're not even allowed to use these, then whatever, doesn't matter. So now we can go into Beaver Builder. We're an hour in. By the way, I'm going to have another 30, 45 minutes. So we're going to see how far we can get with building this. And yeah, we're just going to do that. So for this one, I didn't even try to use grid. Oh, you know what? Just going back to grid. I'm gonna go back to grid for just a second. Now I closed it. Okay, might as well just do it here. Let's let's spend a moment more on grid, because what another thing that I'm missing in Beaver Builder is the option to just set the width of the tracks. Like I can tell it I want this to be a grid and I want it to have 3 columns, right? But each column is automatically set to be a third or a quarter if it's 4 or whatever, right? Like it's just going to scale proportionally. And I cannot give it like what I told you about the fractions, to say I want to have the first one fraction, the second one 2 fractions, the third one, again 1 fraction. I can't do this. It's just not an option that I have, which again is really not ideal. Yeah. And also, just sticking with grid for a moment, I'm just going to plug Kevin Geary's Page Building 101. So if we go to YouTube, Page Building 101, right, pasting it in the chat for you guys. You really, 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 really have to watch this if you want to be a professional web developer, or if you already are and you feel like there's always room for improvement, there's always new things you can learn, then watch this, because he basically teaches you the best practices of web design, and it's extremely valuable. It For me, there was a whole bunch of stuff that I already knew, but he filled a ton of gaps for me, and he added to my knowledge in a great way. And then also he introduced me to a whole lot of completely new concepts that I kind of knew of before, and I always thought, well, I got to learn about this at some point, and I kept putting it off. And then Kevin came around, and then yeah, it's a really great video series that teaches you to take your web design skills to the next level. So we're not going to use grid for this. We are going to use just 2 regular rows, a column with a row with 2 regular columns in them. I'm going to go here, full width, and the content's going to be the content width. And then I didn't really on Beaver Builder on this website, because as I said earlier, I kind of just built this website as I went along. I was like, hey, let's put this here and see how it looks. And then if it doesn't look nice, let's put it somewhere else. And Beaver Builder encourages you to do that kind of building, because it does a lot of stuff just behind the scenes for you. So you don't have to worry about how, if it's coded in a nice way, which it isn't. And you don't, you can't really influence it anyway. Mm. So you're kind of free to just throw stuff at a wall and see what sticks and see what comes out, and you're going to come up with a nice design if you have design sensibilities. It's totally possible. It's just going to be a whole messy. The source code is going to be horrible. The DOM is going to be horrible, and it's not going to be developed according to best practices. Still, this was built by 2022 Matt, and unless I rebuild it from scratch and break, I'm stuck working like 2022 Matt did. There's a couple of things that now I can do better than I, did in 2022, because I learned them and Beaver Builder allows me to do them. But there are few and far between. Like most of this stuff is just, this is how Beaver Builder operates, and this is how you're going to build. One thing I learned, or actually I don't know if Beaver Builder had it in 2022. Perhaps I was just not aware of it. But now, as of today, you can in Beaver Builder set the default width and height, well, not width and height, actually padding, horizontal and vertical padding of your rows. So if I were to build this website now in Beaver Builder, I would, you can see I always did 60 pixels here and 60 pixels here at the top and bottom of each row, right? And I had to sort of write that down on a piece of paper, or just actually what ended up happening is whenever I built another page, I went back to the front page and opened it in Beaver Builder, and I just looked it up. I was like, yeah, what was I using? Oh yeah, it was 60 on this one, right? And then on another one, it was 120. And I was using pixels anyway. So you're supposed to use rem, which Kevin explains in Page Building 101. But that was 2022. So we're going to build this how I built it in 2022. And also, I decided here I'm not going to have 60 pixels because I just want to get right to the nitty gritty, right to the meat and potatoes of the content. And there's no to have like a gap in between the navigation and the actual content. I'm going to put these next to each other. So the left column is going to get a background color, right? It's like a bit of a darker gray. I think it was DDD or something like that. Let's just use it. Yeah, let's make it a bit brighter. Good enough. And we're going to put a heading in there. So this here is my heading 1, H1 tag. So for good copywriting, you need to have just one H1 tag on every page that you build, because that's the title of the page. It's like if you write an article, that's the title of your article. I did some rudimentary keyword optimization with this because I want the word Rauchmelder, which is smoke detector, and then the city names, like the areas that the guy is active in, I want them to be in the H1 in the heading so that search engines will pick up on it. Save this one. Then I put a divider. Yeah, I didn't save it. So in Bricks, what you would do now is you could place a divider, or you could just use an after pseudo class to make a divider and just give that a class of its own. And then, you can reuse that CSS class anywhere else on the page. And it's going to make, or in the whole website, and it's going to make your dividers look the same. What you do in Beaver Builder is I would, open the Beaver Builder. Let's actually do that. So this is my separator. It's called separator in Beaver Builder, and I click on Save As, and I save it as a module, right? I call it default separator, and that's it. I'm going to save it. I'm going to publish, and then here I'm going to save my work as well with pressing Control P. And F5, I reload, and then in my save modules, I'm now going to find this default separator, and I can just put it here, right? Now we run into a problem. If I use this default separator on 7 pages, 20 times each, and then the client comes and says, I want it blue, then I'm up shit creek, because I need to open all 7 pages and, redo by hand all 140 separators, which is not the nicest way to, spend a day. So there's 2 ways you can, save yourself from that nightmare. First of all, in Beaver Builder, what I should have done differently here is I should have gone here, separator, save as, divider. What did I call it? Default separator new. And I would have said that I want this to be global. So now what I created is a save module. You can save modules, you can save columns, you can save rows, make them global so that if you change them once, they're going to change everywhere they're put on the website. So now what I do here is I go to saved, I go to, wait, no, I gotta reload. And I put the no, definitely not the separator. Where am I? Global separator, default separator new, right? I have this little badge here that says it's global. It's here as well. and now it's global. So now if I open this, you can see it has a gold border. If I open this and I change its settings, then they're going to change everywhere. So here's a separator. This is one way to do it. And then if the actual way to do this as a web developer is if you just like all the time that people hand coded websites in HTML and CSS, this is how it was done. Then in like 2014ish, in the WordPress world at least, all these page builders sprung up, like Beaver Builder, Elementor, Divi, etc., and it became quite successful. And I fell in love with it because what I'm doing here is I'm building a website on the front end. I'm just dragging and dropping stuff together, and it's so easy. It's fantastic. It makes page building a whole new experience for somebody who used to just hand code websites, right? But things were no longer done the way that they're done. Like because you okay because in HTML and CSS, sorry, COVID's still there. HTML and CSS, what you do is you just give it a class, and then you style that class, and then you apply the class to any other element that you want to have the same stuff. Like for instance, how I did in this, I wanted all of these guys to have a blue border, right? So I gave them the class block and grid, right? And then I said, there's two classes here, okay? So I said in CSS, if you're a block, you get a border that's 2 pixels wide and solid. And if you have the class grid, then your border is going to be blue. And if you have the class flex, your border is going to be magenta, right? And that's how all of these guys get a magenta and blue border, right? Let's say this second section, I give this the class block and flex, yeah, block and grid, right? Let's say the second section here, section, and then I go class equals block grid, press Control Enter, right? Then it gets that, right? And that's something that in Beaver Builder you can't. I mean, you can do that, but then things get complicated. Like you can give it an HTML class, and then you need to go elsewhere, and you actually need to write your CSS for that class, and then sort of you can do classes, but Bricks is much better that way because it has a class first workflow. It's basically built around that concept of how do we build websites as web developers in HTML and CSS, and it just is a front end for that. Right. Um, so I wrote a bunch of text. I gave that some, this is just text really. I went up and I went out and I looked up these different links, like these different pages that I could link to, like for instance the product page for this thing, call to action. They like if you click here, it's automatically going to open an email that you can send to the chimney sweep. And the features, I linked to different certifications that it had, different quality features, and then I linked to the product page at the manufacturer, the fact sheet, and the manual. Okay, and then I used a module from Ultimate Add-ons for Beaver Builder. It's called a slide box, and I actually had already used that here. This is the slide box. Click on it, and it slides open. And I just copied that and put it in here. Right there it is. So that's how I built this whole content. I'm not going to rebuild it now because it's just going to bore you. And you can see how I did it here. And if you have questions, let me know. And then on the second column here, I gave this background color, background image. And go to column settings. photo, select photo, whatever. I'm just going to pick one. And I gave it an overlay. And as an overlay, I picked a gradient because I wanted to have this yellow piece in the corner, like on the left edge. And in order to do that, I was using a gradient. Column settings. It's a 2-color gradient. It, first color is that yellow, and then the second color is the blue, but with some transparency mixed in. And I just said I want the rotation to be, I can rotate it more or less, like you can see here. So it's 92. This is a bug in Beaver Builder that is now no longer, like the yellow is no longer visible. And then I said at 5% of the whole width of the whole gradient, which goes across from left to right, at 5%, I want the color to be, yellow. So up until that point, it's going to be yellow. And then up until, or starting from 5.2%, the color is going to be blue. And that's how I made that gradient, like that blue with some transparency. I put in an H2 with, some more. Also, again, there's some keywords in here. The smoke detector is again in here. And, this is also smoke detector for Göttingen, which is the name of the town. So there's some optimization for search engines going on here. And I put 4 photos in here. It's a gallery, and it just has those 4 images in there. I think it's self-explanatory. We have the same divider, and then I wrote down what the price is. I gave that a unique styling. The text a little larger, bold, and they're going to tell me the price at some point. Then I added a button. It says order now, and again, it's just a mail to link. So you click on it, and it mails to, the chimney sweep, and then you have contact data, and that's it. Now in any columns settings, if I go to column settings of the left column, I can just tell it to equalize heights, right? And if I do that, then automatically the left and the right column are going to have the same height. If I don't do that, right, this column is just going to end where the content ends. Yes. Now, let's talk about responsive design. If I open this on the front end, which I still have here, we can see that there's actually another heading up here, right? So why is that not visible on the front end? Because that's designed to be only visible on smaller devices. So you can see here, if you hover your mouse over it, it's got visibility settings, and the visibility rule is on the column itself. And I just told it that I don't want to see it on extra large and large screens, but I do want to see it on medium and small screens, right? So I just disabled these two. So that way, here, large screen, it's not visible. But then if the screen gets smaller, it's going to become visible. So this is how the layout shifts on smaller screens. Like this is still like a laptop or a tablet in portrait mode, in landscape mode. And now if we're switching to tablet portrait mode, then the left column becomes the top column. And the heading appears up here, right? Then if we scroll down, we have this whole column, same content as before. And then there's no heading here because, we have the heading up here now. So there's no heading here. And then it starts with a nice line and the whole text in this, right? So we're still following the semantic structure that we need here, which is an H1, like the heading, the first heading on the page is the title, and it's an H1, and then it's followed by the next heading, which is an H2 in HTML. So there's a nice hierarchy here, right? H2, this is just a nothing. And these are H3s, right? So that's how it works. Brandon says, inherited a huge Beaver Builder site recently, don't know the interface workflow yet. Yeah, yeah. I'm I'm hoping you're gonna get along with it because as you can see, it's in many ways it's a bit cumbersome. It's different to say the least. Yeah, absolutely. Um, just fight for it to be rebuilt in bricks is what I would say. Like get the client to agree to that as soon as possible. The thing is also this is really fast hosting. It's shared hosting, but holy shit, like they're really as fast as if I was using a local website on my computer. So I'm really happy with them. And but if it's any slower hosting and if the websites get any heavier, if there's more content on them, it gets extremely sluggish just to work with Beaver Builder. Um, and it becomes really frustrating. I think at this point I've talked about pretty much everything I wanted to talk about. I didn't rebuild the whole thing. I think it's fairly clear what I've been doing. We went over the responsive design. Let's perhaps talk about how to actually do the responsive design. So you can just press the letter R, and then you can cycle through breakpoints. And then for every breakpoint, like a large screen, medium, or small screen, you can then decide how you want the elements of the layout to align. Like on a large screen, I just left pretty much everything untouched as it was. And then on a medium screen, that's when I decided, okay, I want this extra heading over here, and I don't want to show the heading further down. And I gave these columns then 100% width. Right, I set the width of this column to 100% and width of the column below as well. And then one thing you need to do in Beaver Builder, or you can do in Beaver Builder, it's really nice. You can just set them, you can set reverse columns. So if I go to, like, let's say, I'm going to open the settings of the first column again and go to advanced, then I can say reverse column order. So on small and medium devices, I want this column to be the first and then this other column to be the last. Whereas on large devices, it's the other way around. This column comes first and then this comes last. It's basically what you would do with CSS order if you were building this yourself, if you were hand coding it. And with CSS order, you still get more power and more freedom to really influence your alignments or your work. But in Beaver Builder, at least it has this function where you can just say, okay, I want to reverse them, which is also the most common scenario. So that's what you can do with the builder at this point. I think we're through. My voice is disappearing. Slowly going. If you guys have any questions left, shoot now. Otherwise, I think we can wrap up for today. Any feedback would be appreciated because yes, first stream. Um, was this useful in any way? Did you guys learn something? I do hope. Please leave it in the comments below if you did. Leave me a like and subscribe. The whole YouTube shit. And I'll be live again soon. I do have one project where I'm actually rebuilding a client's website. They have a website that was built a long time ago in a software that is no longer compatible with PHP 8. So you're kind of forced to be on PHP 7.1 or something. And then if you go on any later one, the website breaks. So I'm basically just rebuilding it as it is with bricks without changing anything. And I want to go through that step by step. I just want to do the whole rebuild live. That's going to be a nice one. And I also want to show off some work in Figma because I think that's something where I can learn, hopefully. Like I would like to have some people on there because I just started using Figma about a year ago. Yeah, give or take, like 10 months. and I feel fairly confident with it. It's not like you have to relearn everything from scratch because coming from GIMP, you're already good. But thank you guys. Thanks for the feedback. Thanks, Kelly. That's awesome. I'm glad you were here. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to having you again on another stream. But again, yeah. So I do want to learn. I think I still need to learn a lot in Figma. So that's going to be an interesting one. So there's going to be build, and I hope there's going to be some Figma work soon. And I will also, if I get permission from that client, I will go through an entire project from scratch, which is a completely new website. They are online with an old website, and I'm rebuilding a new one for them from scratch. And the project is actually just beginning. It's a dentist, and I want to go through everything from conception, collecting data, talking to them, getting their getting assets, creating assets, and then doing wireframes in Figma, do copywriting and all of that stuff through that first phase. Then second phase would be just developing the actual website, and then again close it off, or also close it off with the launch. It would be nice if I got permission to do that. Then I'm going to try to do most or all of this project just in live streams. So those are just some ideas. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you guys soon. So long. Bye.